Shadows twist where whispers grow. The edge of light begins to flow. A world unseen through fractured glass, where futures meet the echoes past. Step closer now, the veil is thin. A riddle starts where dreams begin. The experimental medium calls your name. Nothing here will be the same.
And today, we're looking into someone pretty fascinating, Daniel Dunglas' home, or D.D. home. He was right in the middle of some very strange and debated events.
And we're mainly drawing from two texts today. D.D. Home, his life and mission, and also his own book, which is usually called Incidents in My Life.
Right, so we get a biography and his own side of the story. That's useful.
It really is. It gives us different perspectives. And just to be clear, our goal isn't really to say this definitely happened or this is why.
No, not at all. It's more about understanding what these specific sources say happened. What were the key events reported? How did people react? What were the big questions?
Precisely. We want to unpack what's in these texts.
Okay, and we know you listening might have different backgrounds. Maybe you know a lot about this stuff, maybe not. So we'll try to make it engaging, avoid jargon.
And hopefully hit those aha moments.
Yeah, exactly. So D.D. Home, born near Edinburgh. The sources jump pretty quickly into some unusual things happening when he was young.
That's right. It seems to start with these odd sounds, rappings in his aunt's house over in America in Greenville.
And his aunt's first reaction was not good.
No, she apparently thought it was demonic, which, led to involving local religious figures.
3 of them, right? A Congregationalist, a Baptist, and a Wesleyan minister. They all came to check it out.
And they didn't all agree at first. The sources say 2 leaned towards supernatural, but the Baptist minister was convinced it was Satan.
Which led to this kind of pivotal moment. He tried an exorcism.
He did. And according to Holmes' account, as the minister was praying, specifically asking for deliverance from Satan, these gentle taps started.
Gentle at first.
Yes, but then they apparently got louder, particularly when the minister spoke about divine mercy.
Huh. And Holmes' reaction to that?
He took it as a sign, like divine approval. The sources frame this as a real turning point for him, where he decided, okay, I need to follow whatever this is, as long as it feels only good and true.
That's a powerful experience for a young person, feeling this direct, divine response.
Absolutely. You can see how it would shape his path, even with all the difficulties he later said it caused him.
And the ministers, what did they make of the rappings during the prayer?
Utterly perplexed, according to the accounts. Just astonished. So this early stuff really sets the scene for the more physical phenomena later on.
Yeah, the sources give a lot of examples, often with witnesses.
They do. Like that incident with Mrs. Burr and the automatic writing, that's a really detailed one.
Tell us about that. What exactly happened?
Well, the account describes a pencil just sitting there, starting to move on its own.
Really? No one touching it?
That's the claim. And it apparently wrote the name of Mrs. Burr's deceased cousin.
Okay, that's weird. But the handwriting?
Was identified as the cousin's handwriting, and they supposedly kept the piece of paper.
And Mr. Burr, the relative, he backed this up, said no one present wrote it.
Yes, that's what the source states. It adds a layer of, corroboration, at least within the narrative.
There was something else odd connected to that, wasn't there? Something about hands.
Ah, yes. The daguerreotype. A photo of the cousin taken before she died apparently showed her hands looking a certain way, described as wasted.
Okay.
And Mr. Burr later described seeing a spirit hand materialize during a séance. He said it looked just like the hands in the photo.
A materialized hand. What did it do?
It supposedly shook hands with everyone there, described as feeling soft and slightly warm, but ending abruptly at the wrist.
Right. Okay. These are very specific, tangible details. Makes the accounts quite vivid.
Whether you find them credible or not, they are certainly memorable, and this physicality extends to other things, like furniture moving.
Ah, yes, the table tilting. That comes up a lot. Heavy tables moving, lifting off the ground.
Without anyone visibly touching them, often with multiple witnesses present. There's one account mentioning 9 people.
What happened then?
Chairs and a heavy table started vibrating. There were constant rappings, even handbells moving around on their own.
And the crucial part,
People were under the table trying to see if there was any trickery involved, and apparently found nothing. That's a key claim.
it certainly challenges simple explanations.
Hmm.
And then there's the levitation.
Holmes' own levitations, yes. He described a feeling like an electrical fullness in his feet.
Then his arms would go rigid and up he'd go.
Right up to the ceiling, apparently. Sometimes in light, sometimes in darkness, with witnesses present.
There was that instance in London, Sloane Street.
Yes, with 5 gentlemen witnesses cited, and sometimes he'd apparently take a pencil.
And make a mark on the ceiling while he was up there.
That's the story. Adds a rather peculiar bit of supposed proof. There was an earlier instance in America mentioned too.
Levitation. That's a big claim.
It is. And it wasn't just him moving. Objects moved too, like musical instruments.
The accordion. That's another famous one.
Playing by itself, sometimes quite far from home or anyone else. Witnesses insisting no one was playing it conventionally.
Wasn't there a specific tune mentioned?
Last Rose of Summer, supposedly played while the accordion was just resting on someone's feet. A very strange image.
Definitely surreal. And smaller things, too.
Handbells being passed between people by, well, unseen forces. Even a sheet of paper sticking to a table that was turned on its side, only falling when allowed to.
So all these extraordinary reports, they must have attracted a lot of attention.
Huge attention, especially from prominent people. And the reactions were, well, all over the map.
Like Sir David Brewster, the scientist.
A perfect example. The sources say he was initially amazed, privately said he couldn't explain what he saw with Home through fraud or any known science.
Look then.
But then he publicly denounced Home as an imposter in the Morning Advertiser. A complete turnaround.
What caused that? Was there a dispute?
There was a disagreement about whether Brewster was actually prevented from looking under the table properly during the seance.
So he went from inexplicable to fraud. Seems inconsistent.
It does raise questions. He declined, or was possibly prevented from, a full examination, then later just assumed it must have been fraud.
Interesting. But not everyone reacted that way.
No. T.A. Trollope, the author, he was at a séance shortly after Brewster and publicly stated he saw things he absolutely couldn't explain. A direct contrast.
And royalty got involved, too. Empress Eugenie of France.
Yes. There's an account of a séance at the Tuileries Palace. An empty chair supposedly started moving, swaying in a way that reminded her of her late father.
And Home described the father.
Accurately, apparently. Even though Home had never met him, and the only portrait wasn't one Home was known to have seen. Quite striking, if true.
It shows how widespread the interest was right up to the highest levels.
Absolutely. English society was fascinated too. Big names like Sir E.B. Lytton, the author, and Dr. Ashburner sought him out.
Speaking of doctors, there was disagreement there, too.
Oh, yes. Dr. Ashburner became a firm believer in spiritualism. But his colleague, Dr. Elliotson, thought it was all delusion.
That caused a rift between them.
A major one. And Elliotson was quite critical of Home even before meeting him. Thackeray apparently based a character on him, though, interestingly, Home and Elliotson did eventually meet later on.
Home's circles were wide then, even into Russia.
He knew figures like Herzen, the writer and publisher.
Didn't Herzen have a printing press?
Yes, and he apparently invited Home to a celebration there. Home also knew Turgenev, the novelist.
The author of Fathers and Sons.
That's him. They apparently shared a certain temperament, and Turgenev was fond of Home's child. Home even acted in an amateur play arranged by Countess Tolstoy.
Wow. So he really moved in diverse, influential circles.
He certainly did, and it wasn't just intellectuals or aristocrats. James Hutchinson.
The chairman of the London Stock Exchange.
The very same. He started as a complete skeptic, went to a seance wanting to debunk it, and ended up publishing an account saying he was convinced the phenomena were real.
That's quite a conversion for a man in his position.
It shows the impact these experiences, or reported experiences, had. But it wasn't all positive interactions. There was the Lyon lawsuit.
Ah, yes. That sounds messy. What happened there?
A wealthy widow, Mrs. Lyon, legally adopted Home, then later sued him.
On what grounds?
She claimed she'd given him a huge sum of money because the spirit of her dead husband, Charles, told her to via messages received through Home.
Okay, but wasn't there a problem with her story?
A big one. In her sworn statement, she claimed she was basically a stranger to Home before all this and that he couldn't possibly have known her husband's name was Charles.
Which sounds contradictory if he was channeling the husband.
Exactly. It undermined her claim of being purely influenced by spirits. And Holmes' reaction to the lawsuit was also unusual.
What did he do?
He was advised to get his assets out of the country, protect the money.
Sensible advice, legally speaking.
But he refused. He took the entire very large sum and invested it all in English securities, right where the court could get it if he lost.
Why would he do that?
It puzzled everyone, even his critics. Maybe conviction, maybe confidence, maybe something else entirely. It's a strange detail.
Definitely adds another layer of complexity. What about other specific, really standout events mentioned?
Oh, there are a few. The lamp chimney incident is... it's bizarre.
Right, at Mrs. E's house. Tell us about that one.
Holmes, supposedly in a trance, picked up a hot glass lamp chimney.
Okay. Ouch.
Well, here's the thing. For some people who touched it, like Mrs. Honeywood and the Earl of Crawford, Lord Lindsay, at the time it felt cool, normal temperature.
Yeah.
But for others, including a Captain Gerard Smith, it was intensely hot. Hot enough to give him a nasty blister.
The same chimney, hot for one, cool for another at the same time.
That's the account. It defies, well, basic physics as we know it.
Wild. Any other really notable ones?
Sergeant Cox's experiences are interesting. He was a lawyer, initially very skeptical.
Another skeptic won over.
Seems so. He wrote to Holmes later acknowledging his initial prejudices were completely overturned by what he witnessed.
What did she see?
Various things, but he specifically mentioned seeing a materialized hand, in daylight, give a flower to Lord Dunraven.
In daylight. That's unusual for these sorts of accounts.
It is. Cox's shift from skepticism is significant. And then there's William Crookes, the scientist.
He actually conducted experiments with Holmes, didn't he?
Yes, proper scientific investigations. He focused on changes in the weight of objects in Holmes' presence.
Did Holmes have to touch the objects?
Not always, apparently. Crookes reported weight alterations even without direct physical contact.
What did the scientific community make of that?
Mixed reactions, predictably. He presented his findings to the Royal Society, but the secretaries actually refused to attend demonstrations. They just wouldn't look.
Really? They wouldn't even observe?
Apparently not. There was resistance. Professor Stokes raised objections, but Crookes actually wrote a mathematical rebuttal. He stood by his findings.
Fascinating. What about Holmes himself later in life? Any insights from the sources?
There are glimpses. A reflection on a message he supposedly got in a trance. Something about even pagan worship having a germ of truth suggests a kind of broad spiritual view.
And his health declined.
Yes, quite badly. But he still had a big 50th birthday celebration in Nice, did recitations. He also reportedly predicted his own long, painful final illness, but accepted it as God's will.
Adds a poignant note. Were there any other sort of really unusual physical phenomena mentioned?
Two more stand out. One involves a verbena plant.
A plant? What happened?
Holmes supposedly passed his hands over it and seemed to draw the scent, the very life force, out of it. The plant withered and died right there.
Just from hand passes, that's eerie.
Very. And the other is a personal anecdote from someone in Russia.
What was that?
A ring belonging to this person's deceased father-in-law was suddenly placed on her finger by an unseen force. This happened after a voice identified itself as a mesmerist and her guardian angel.
Goodness. Very personal, that one.
Indeed. But amidst all these incredible stories, we absolutely have to acknowledge the constant presence of skepticism and accusations of fraud.
Right. That was always there, wasn't it? And it's in the sources, too.
Definitely. Holmes himself argued that the things people saw would be incredibly hard, maybe impossible, to fake with stage magic or machinery.
But others disagreed.
Oh, strongly. And even some believers, like Sergeant Cox, later admitted that fraud was absolutely rampant in the wider spiritualist movement, even while maintaining that some things he saw, like with Holmes, were genuine.
So there was an awareness of fakes even within the movement.
Yes. Lights and Shadows of Spiritualism, one of the texts discussing the era, talks quite a bit about fraudulent mediums and deception.
And things like spirit photography.
Mention is controversial, yes. Lights and Shadows notes the skepticism around those, the difficulty in verifying them.
So beyond the phenomena themselves, did the sources suggest why people were so interested? What was the perceived purpose of spiritualism back then?
A key idea that comes through is that it was seen by some as an antidote to materialism.
You mean the rise of science, industrialization, focusing only on the material world?
Exactly. Spiritualism offered, for believers, assurance that there was a spirit world, that consciousness survived death, that there was immortality.
So it could kind of shore up religious belief.
That was one view, yes. that it could reinforce faith in religious texts by providing seemingly tangible proof of the non-material. It tapped into those big 19th century debates about faith versus science.
Okay. So, wrapping this deep dive up, we've really journeyed through the life and the reported world of D.D. Home, based entirely on the sources you wanted us to explore.
We have. We've covered a huge range from those early rappings to apparent levitations, materialized hands, interactions with scientists, royal...
Actresses, authors, stock exchange chairman.
Ah.
Quite a list. And the physical stuff, moving tables, playing instruments, that weird lamp chimney.
And crucially, as the sources themselves show, the reactions were just as varied. Intense belief, deep skepticism, accusations of outright fraud, it was all there.
Yeah, the whole spectrum.
So, for you listening, hoping to get a solid grasp of this quickly, we hope this dive gave you that concentrated look into what's undeniably a complex and, let's face it, incredibly intriguing piece of history.
Definitely intriguing. And maybe a final thought to leave you with, something that arises from all this.
Go on.
Well, thinking about these detailed accounts, the conviction of some witnesses, the dismissal by others, what does this enduring fascination with phenomena like Holmes tell us about human nature?
You mean about our curiosity, our need to believe, perhaps, our search for meaning beyond just the physical stuff we can touch and measure?
Yeah, something like that. And also, what is that constant tension? The clash between someone's profound personal experience, something they know they saw or felt, and the demands of science for objective proof. What does that tension really reveal?
About how we make sense of reality, how we decide what's true.
Yeah. Exactly. Something to mull over.
Whispers creeping through the haze, shadows dance in twisted ways, echoes hum from worlds unseen. This is where the strange convene. Step into the unknown mind, secrets hidden, twist and bind, truths that linger in between. Welcome to the spectral stream. A voice that stirs the silent night, guides you through the fading light. Journeys deep beyond the real, where unseen forces are revealed. Step into the unknown mind, secrets hidden, twist and bind, truths that linger in between. Welcome to the spectral stream. Electric sparks and haunted tones, reality's edge becomes your home. Questions rise like fragile smoke, the uncharted realms silently spoke. Step into the unknown mind, secrets hidden, twist and bind, truths that linger in between. Welcome to the spectral stream. Electric sparks and haunted tones, reality's edge becomes your home. Questions rise like fragile smoke. The uncharted realm silently spoke. Step